Welcome. The Center for Teaching and Learning is showcasing faculty innovations in and out of the classroom and creating a space for faculty to share ideas and learn from each other's experiences. This is one of a series of informal conversations where we ask a faculty member to describe and demonstrate their innovative practices. Today, we're speaking with Dr. Wenjia Li, Associate Professor in the Computer Science Department of the College of Engineering and Computing Sciences. Wenjia started at New York Tech in fall 2014. Before joining New York Tech, he was a tenure-track assistant professor at Georgia Southern University, a public research university in the Georgia University system. Wenjia teaches computer programming 1 and 2, data structures, and algorithm concepts. He regularly uses the LMS, first Blackboard and now Canvas, to interact with his students between classes. I'm delighted to talk to Wenjia today. I've had the pleasure of working with him several times as part of a course design institute and as part of New York Tech's project with Everspring to redesign high enrollment freshman-facing courses. Wenjia, welcome.
Thank you, Fran, for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here and trying to share with everyone some of my findings. And also, I'm waiting to hear from you regarding some of your suggestions. How can we advance the online teaching and learning?
Great. Let's start with an easy one. Which course is your absolute favorite to teach and why?
Okay, that's a very good question. So my answer is, I believe I really enjoy teaching and interacting with students for my Programming 1 and Programming 2 courses. Programming 1, which corresponds to CSCI 125, and Programming 2 corresponds to CSCI 185. Those two courses are the first two Java courses that students will take in computer science curriculum, and that will get students prepared for more advanced computer science courses, such as data structures, algorithms, or even operating systems. So I believe those two courses will build up a very solid foundation for students to better understand how Java or other programming languages, for example, can help them program their thoughts into some computer understandable format and trying to gain some critical thinking skills so that they can use programming languages as a tool to help them really build up their future career.
I like teaching those introductory courses too. I like embedding what the students are going to need for the subsequent courses. You teach some of the follow-on courses in the sequence, right?
Right. I also taught data structures. And sometimes people joke that I have Programming 3 because data structures also use the Java programming, but it's more advanced because now we will be looking at using Java as a tool to implement different types of data structures, for instance, trees or graphs or linked lists and so on. So that's why I feel like that teaching Programming 1 and 2 will give students some more understanding about what is Java and how to use it in practice. And also, my student comes from very diversified background. Some students didn't have any prior programming experience at all. And sometimes students took AP courses in computer science. And many of those AP courses now in high school is based upon Java. So I do see that there's a very diversified student body entering my classroom. And I have to really face that challenge because you don't want to get those advanced students to be really disappointed, because if you teach all of those topics they have already learned, then they can easily feel like it's kind of too easy and it's not challenging at all. But if I start from very advanced topics, then those without the corresponding background will feel like that they don't have the prereq or the previous knowledge to get started. So it's always really a balance, trying to see how can we get both the non-AP prepared student and also the student with AP background to sit in the same classroom and both feel like that they learn something. So that's the challenging part.
You've been working with Everspring to put Programming 1 and 2 online, or large parts of it online. Are you finding that you're adding resources for students at one end of the spectrum or another, or resources for students at both ends?
I believe so. So when I interact with folks at Everspring, especially I want to thank Amanda Olson, and she's a very amazing instructional designer. And she worked with me on both 125 and 185. And I think we are trying to like redesign the course to fit in the online and asynchronous learning environment. And also we are adding different resources for students to look offline. So it's not necessarily just all like original content that I used to teach when we are having the in-person meetings. So sometimes we can add additional video clips, we can add additional links so that a student can get more in-depth view of what's happening for each of those topics. So yeah, we are trying to make sure that students from different background, technical background, will all feel like that they're learning something new from the programming courses.
Great. Now, as you think back about your own education, is there a teacher or a student when you've been teaching that has changed how you approach teaching?
Excellent question. So I think I like to mention two people, if you don't mind. One is my mother, because she was a very senior elementary school math teacher for over 40 years before her retirement. So actually, she inspired me to become a teacher. And I was in her class when I was in elementary school back in China. So I think she really have a very excellent teaching philosophy and teaching like skills. So I really enjoy learning like those elementary level math from her. That really inspired me to think about whether or not I want to pursue for a like faculty career after I got my PhD. The second people I want to mention is actually one of my colleagues when I was doing my PhD at the University of Maryland. So in the last semester of my PhD, I got a very rare opportunity to teach one course independently by myself, not as a TA, but as an instructor. And that course was Introduction to Programming, but we are using a different programming language, which was JavaScript. And at that moment, I'm not really I haven't really used JavaScript that widely, even if I know how to program in that language. Then I did have a more senior colleague whose name was Dawn Block. She did an excellent job giving me some ideas about what is the general like teaching philosophy and the teaching like kind of skills needed to be successful in a US university, because I had some prior teaching experience back in China. So when I was like a master student in China, I taught undergraduate like courses there as a part-time lecturer. But then I know that there's some major difference, or kind of like from the cultural perspective. For instance, the university that's like classrooms in China, students generally don't really ask many questions during the lecture. Maybe they will ask questions at the end. So you will see that they will be like aggregating near the professor when the class ends. But here in US, in the first couple of classes that I teach independently, I noticed that students can easily raise hand whenever they have any question. So I think Dawn really gave me a lot of suggestions and useful tips to help me understand the campus culture here and how to be successful and be prepared to be a good teacher in a US setting. So I want to mention those two people that really have a very deep impact into my teaching career.
Thank you. So let's look back a little over a year ago in March 2020. How did you feel when we had to move to remote learning?
Okay, that question, it's really bring me back. I'm trying to imagine what happens last March, but I still remember at the end, like near that transition period, I was already prepared to drive to New York City campus, because people are saying that the public transportation may no longer be safe because of the COVID widespread. So I remember one morning when I trying to drive to school and trying to start like teaching the courses, I checked my email right before I left, and I saw that President Foley mentioned that we are now transitioning to the online like remote teaching mode. So I think it's a bit surprised, but I think obviously given the overall context, it's not surprising. But for that day, it's pretty surprising, because I was prepared to drive my car and trying to talk about like where I should park and all of those, because I used to be a commuter, so I take the Metro North to commute to the Grand Central and then take the subway. So I don't generally drive to the city in weekdays because I know it's very hectic going through the Henry Hudson Parkway. But I think students also get a little bit surprised because they may not necessarily having the correct mindset to adapt to the fully like online teaching mode. But I tried my best to give them as many instructions and support as I can. So I remember we have that emergency like a Zoom meetings set up, and then I trying to engage them as much as I could. For instance, when we had the in-person teaching like mode, then I will have some in-class exercise so that I will put them into groups, and then I will give them some problems in Java to solve, and then give them maybe 10-15 minutes to solve the problem. And then at the end, we will have an aggregated discussion for the whole class. But then now we are in the online teaching mode, so it can no longer be practical because we are all behind the computer screens. Then I trying to use a Zoom to set up the similar settings. So I will set up the breakout rooms, and then I will let them sign into different rooms because I don't really like to like say, oh, student A and B go to this room or C and D go to the other room. I want them to volunteer to join different groups, still have opportunity to work as a team, trying to solve the problem in a collaborative setting. And then at the end, still go back to the, my earphone drops. So at the end of the discussion, still go back to the main Zoom session and then have a whole discussion altogether. But I believe overall it's a successful experience, and I think students like the way that I still engage them to the maximum extent that I could.
Sounds like you did pretty well with it.
Thank you.
And your students liked choosing their own breakout room?
Yes, sometimes I think it's more like a combination. So some students will like to choose whom to work with. But in some scenarios, students have difficulty locating a team, then they may ask me for help. And then I will try my best to place them to some other teams that may have room, or some other students who also have similar issues with finding a team. And then I always give them support. I will tell them that if they have any question or if they need any help finding a team or forming a team, please let me know, because I know that there may be not just one student, there may be multiple students who have the similar issues. So then in that case, if I know whoever needs help in trying to build a team for them, so that they will feel like that they're not left behind.
And do you have the impression that everyone participated, or did it seem like a different dynamic than it was in the classroom?
I would say it could be, I think it's kind of similar. Even if we are having the in-person meetings, if I give them some in-class exercise, like writing a Java program in a team setting, still there may be some students who kind of pretend that they are doing something. And even if they are in a team, you know that it's not always the case where everyone is contributing to the problem-solving process. So maybe one or two students may take the lead. They may be very active in having the discussion, and there may be one or two students who just sit on the corner and then just listen very quietly. So it's kind of similar in the online teaching mode, because I know that some students like to really lead the discussion and trying to be very active, but some students may not be that active. So I fully understand that it may be just because of their different characteristics. So I think my motivation here is to trying to provoke them to work with each other, because it's also very beneficial in the future, thinking about their career. And in the software engineering companies, it's very likely that they're not working alone, they're working in a team. So sooner or later, they have to get some skills to interact with people in a technical setting, not really having casual chatting. But for the professional, like trying to build up some software project, they have to know how to split the work into different pieces and still collaborate very effectively.
So then in the summer, we found out that we were going to stay remote in the fall. Did you change anything else in the summer, between the summer and the spring? Because in the spring, as you said, it was very sudden. We're going remote, and it sounds like you adapted very smoothly.
Right.
Was there anything you saw in the spring that you wanted to change as you went to the fall semester?
Definitely, because I believe that for spring, it's more like emergency transition. But for the fall, we are more prepared. So during the summer, I want to thank Dimbi Hashti because he took the initiative to organize a small group of CS and EC faculty members to work on some online teaching. So we have, I think, weekly or bi-weekly meetings last summer that we will do some like discussion and see where we are and trying to, and I think DMBHD will provide us some resources in terms of how to effectively teach online. So I think those are very helpful. So I want to thank DMBHD for all of those very amazing efforts. Based upon that, I trying to adapt some of the online teaching philosophy into the design of the online version of the 185 because I taught 185 for last spring and also last fall and also this spring. So I try to not just do that emergency transition, like emergency online teaching, but trying to be more prepared so that I can give students more resources they can read beforehand and something that they can review afterwards and so on. So I fully believe that with more preparation, we can do better and better.
How did the students respond in the fall compared to the spring?
I believe they like the improved version of the online course better because I think for the improved version and also last fall I get engaged with Amanda to develop the online version of the 185. So I'm trying to utilize some of the materials that I developed on the fly into the current semester, which was last fall's teaching experience. So I believe students really like that, and they feel like that it's not just another version of in-person teaching because now they feel like that it's something more fundamentally different and it's more adaptive to the online teaching setting.
Thank you. So sometimes in class, there's a moment where everything pulls together and it's almost magical because you and the students are all fully engaged. Can you tell us about one of those moments in your classes?
I think it's the moment that I kind of feel magical or feel enjoyable the most is when we have, as I mentioned, when we have those discussions. Because I think for the online teaching, I think the most challenging part is how to make sure that students are fully engaged. If I keep lecturing, then I'm pretty sure that students may fall asleep more easily than in-person teaching. And for in-person teaching, at least I can have some eye contact with them and trying to remind them, okay, so I can even move around in the classroom because I like to do that so that students feel like that I'm among them, not just further away from them. So I generally like to walk within the different areas of the classroom so that students feel like that I'm with them. But for the online teaching, I cannot walk next to them. So we are all behind the computer screens. And so it's very easy for students to get distracted. Sometimes when I try to ask for volunteers to answer some of my questions, then I didn't really always get response. So I feel like that sometimes they may even be away from the computer system, which I cannot tell because I understand that they may not always have a webcam with them. So it's not really rational to assume so. So I don't require them to turn on their webcam unless they want. And without webcam, then with everyone mute, then you don't know what's happening. So that's why I try to design some of the in-class discussion so that I set aside some period of time, maybe let's say 15 minutes or 20 minutes, especially for my programming classes, because I believe programming is really about exercise. If they don't do exercise, then essentially they don't learn effectively. So with all of those programming classes 1 and 2, I try to set aside some time each class, having some topic that I selected before, and which is direct reflection of what I teach in the same class, in the same meeting. And then I will give them some chance to either do it solely, like by themselves, or form a team, depending on the complexity of the problem itself. Then I give them some time and also the breakout rooms. And then whenever students have any question, they can request for help. I don't know if you noticed that, but I regularly get pulled into one room. So let's say student X from room Y request your help. Then I will join the class. I will join that specific breakout rooms and interact with them, having some discussion with them. And also I allow them to share the screen. So if they use any software to program, like one of the Java IDEs, then they can share with me what they have so far. Then I will point out which part they did right, which part they didn't. And I can even request for remote access, which means I can try to type something on their end. And then I think this is very effective because students will know exactly which piece they are missing, so that they will make sure that they know that next time. And then at the end, everyone will go back to the main room session. And then I will ask if there's any volunteer who is willing to share his or her program or their program to the whole class. And generally, I'm pretty successful in getting those volunteers. And then I will make some comments based upon what they wrote, which part, again, like they did well, which part they may need more attention. I feel like that by all of those multiple rounds of interactions, students will have a deeper understanding about what's happening in class and like what I just taught. And that will become very effective. That's the moment I feel like the magic is happening.
Thank you. So Yusui is asking a question in the chat. He teaches physics, as you know, and the two disciplines are similar in that they both require a lot of hands-on experience. And so he's asking about what you spoke about earlier. You've got students who have a lot of experience, but you also have students without experience. How do you get them to be really, truly actively engaged in the discussion? Do you find that this method of groups and going into the breakout rooms, do your less prepared students engage as much as the more prepared students do?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Yusui, for pointing that out. I think one thing that I feel it's very effective is trying to design the discussion questions in layers, like in different levels. You may design the question like in 3 levels. Like one is kind of pretty easy to solve. The second level maybe needs some like thoughts. The third level is very challenging. So depending on the groups, also depending on like how much time you have, I may give them 1, 2, or even all 3 questions to think about, so that if the student is kind of a newcomers, they don't have any prior experience yet, maybe they will spend most of the time in solving the first problem, which is okay. But if the student is more prepared, they have more prior knowledge, then they may go into problem number 2 or even problem number 3. So in that case, they always feel like that they are doing something, they are kind of technically challenging themselves, and they will not feel like that. They kind of like, if I only have one version of the problem, then the most like advanced students, they may feel like, okay, I can solve it in a couple of minutes, then I will just get distracted, maybe play some video game or watch, like looking at my phone, and they may no longer be like really engaged into this process. So that's one thing I found may be effective.
Very nice. Yusui, you're welcome to jump in if you'd like. And I see Luba has a question.
Yes, at first, I remember my first master's was in computer science, and I have no idea how it's possible to have classes on Zoom right now, based on my experience. But my question is, right now I have a 4-hour class on Zoom, and I'm trying to engage my students as much as I can, including video discussions, assignments, breaking rooms, discussions after that, exchanging opinions. And sometimes I give them extra time in break rooms just to communicate among themselves, because students always complain they are missing that communication with their classmates. So I always give them 5-10 minutes extra. But also, what, according to your experience, what is this? What is the difference between make them to be fully engaged in the class and maybe to be too active to make them too active engage in the class?
I think that's a very interesting question. Thank you for that question. I think one thing that I noticed is that currently we are interacting with the newer generation of like college students, and especially in computer science, many of them are having like their like extracurriculum hobbies, and they have their own like interests, not necessarily within the CS curriculum. And I encourage them to use some communication tools after class, so that they can always stay connected. For example, one software is called Discord, Discord. So I know many students know how to set up a Discord server. I always encourage my students to set up one and share that link with all the classmates, so that they can communicate on Discord and exchange some ideas and so on. And the other software, the other app I also recommend them to use is called Slack. I think many of you may have heard about it. So Slack is also another effective communication tool, so that they can talk offline. It's required because my other class that I regularly teaching, I have a semester-long project that I anticipate them to work as a team. So it's always important for them to find ways to communicate with each other, especially within the same team. If we have the in-person classes, it may not be a big issue because they meet each other on a weekly basis. So they can find time to go, let's say, go to the library. There's a self-study room, and they can reserve those rooms and have more in-depth discussion. But now it's online, so they no longer have access. So it's better for them to really have some side channels, like additional channels to communicate, rather than just the in-class time. So that's why I encourage them to use those additional communication tools to get to know each other and also talk to each other on a regular basis after class. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so how do you compare? Do you find the students prefer Slack and Discord to Canvas?
To be honest, I haven't been using the Canvas communication, like I don't know if they have embedded instant messaging tool. At least I'm not aware of that. So that's why I feel like that sometimes they need to get some instant response. Let's say, oh, I met this problem during developing this software. Like, let's say if my other class have a semester-long project, they may need to get some immediate response within the team. So I think it's better if they have some instant messaging tools so that they can stay connected whenever they want. And that's why I suggest to have those additional tools so that they can really get like discussion whenever they need.
Makes perfect sense. So as we begin to move into a post-COVID world, we're looking at going back to campus as much as we can in the fall. This is spring, in the fall. Which of your innovations do you think you will bring back to your classroom-based courses? How are you going to transform your teaching and learning as a result of this pandemic?
I think that's a very good question. Even if we are gradually stepping to the post-pandemic era, I believe the COVID may still with us like for some time. It may not disappear magically. And I've even heard that it may be more like a super flu, so that it will come back every year. We need to get vaccination. And again, I'm not a health scientist, so I really cannot comment on that. But my point is that we need to still be prepared just in case if there's any outbreak of another wave or another like a variation and things like that. We have to be prepared so that whenever necessary, we have to go back to the hybrid or even online teaching mode. So I believe it's very important that we have the Canvas courses developed on a hybrid mode, which means they have the synchronous component and also a synchronous component, so that whenever necessary, we can utilize the asynchronous mode. But when we have a chance to meet in person, I think that will also be important, because I think many students may prefer to see the real person, like the real professor. They feel like that they may learn better. I'm not against that. I think it makes perfect sense. So we want to get prepared in both sense, so both asynchronous and synchronous. And one specific aspect of the online teaching that I feel very useful may be the online discussion, because I believe the student, even if they interact in class, it may be still a good idea for them to interact online. So I'm working with Amanda on like a 125 Programming 1 online course development. So we are having some online discussion topics for many of the modules that I'm developing, so that students may still stay connected, even if they go back to home and they open the Canvas platform. They can still interact with other students and also with me and TA in another way. So I believe this online discussion may be another way to further engage students into this teaching and learning process.
I think that's terrific, because there's also the issue that some students don't want to speak in class, right, or some students take longer to gather their thoughts, and they might not be able to participate in class as thoroughly as they would if they can think about it for a couple of hours and then respond. So you're giving them the opportunity to extend the learning out of class time.
Right. And the other thing I want to mention is that Amanda and also Beatrice gave me very good suggestion for those online discussion. In addition to the textual input, like textual response, they even recommend me to think about having another form of response, which is video clips, because they feel like that, according to their experience, some students may prefer to record a video and share their thoughts rather than like writing up some paragraphs. So I think that's a terrific idea, so that we can have this diversity. If they want to type something in textual input, it's fine. If they want to record a video, it should also be good.
Great. I always try to wrap up these conversations by asking for a recommendation. Is there a particular app or technology that you use that makes your teaching better, makes your students' learning better, streamlines your work?
Definitely. I believe since now we are in the online teaching mode, so we cannot assume that the student will always have access to the computer system. Sometimes they are joining from their phone, they are joining from their tablet, which means they may not have all the necessary software for programming, because for the programming, we generally need to install like a Java IDE such as Eclipse or IntelliJ, but they may not be available for different platforms. And so in that case, I suggest students to look into the online Java IDEs, which means they just need to go to a website or a bunch of different websites, and they can type in their Java programs there. They can get it compiled and then execute it. So I believe this technology will make it adaptive to different situations in which all the students could learn equally in that case, because they may not have the necessary software support in some cases, but we still want them to learn. So this online Java IDEs will fit the need perfectly in this sense.
Terrific, thank you. Wenjia, thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing your practice.
It's my great pleasure. I think I also enjoyed this conversation very well, and I hope we have more interactions definitely in the future. But I know we already have many interactions before, and I think you did a so amazing job in guiding me throughout my tenure at New York Tech.
Thank you. We've been speaking today with Dr. Wenjia Li, Associate Professor in Computer Sciences in the College of Engineering and Computer Sciences, as part of the Great Teaching Series. This conversation's been recorded and will be available on the Center for Teaching and Learning webpage, nyit.edu/CTL. If you'd like to be featured in our Great Teaching Series, please email the Center for Teaching and Learning at ctl@nyit.edu, or better yet, fill out the form that Noreen has put in the chat. It's at bit.ly/great-teaching. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Noreen, and thank you, Yusui and Lubov, for joining me. And I think we have a very pleasant discussion today. Thank you all.